Hello and welcome to Fight News Now. My name is John Pollock, and for the next 30 minutes, we are getting you informed on all of the news happening inside the industry with a packed lineup that includes Bjorn Rebney and Johnny Hendricks. In addition, we will hear from John Ramdine and Robin Black on 3 rounds, and X-Men returns to theaters and will be the focus of the shift this week. But we start off with this week's newsmakers. This Saturday night marks the debut of Bellator on pay-per-view, and despite the loss of their lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez, they will go ahead with the card, which now sees Michael Chandler fight Will Brooks for the interim title. Bellator CEO Bjorn Rebney was here at our studios discussing this pivotal event for the organization.
I'm hesitant to even say it, but for Mo, to a large extent, it's a do-or-die fight in terms of keeping himself at that pristine top level in terms of people looking at him at 205 and in MMA. Rampage has got a huge amount of line. He can reestablish himself. You get, these last 2 wins have been great, but he gets a win over Mo, and then he's shooting for the world title against Newton. That's a big win. That's a big win, no matter where you are and what you're looking at. So all the guys, Tito's got a huge amount of line. Shlemenko has put an amazing amount at risk. 50 wins, 15-fight win streak, and he's put on a line against a 205er who's going to outweigh him by 35, 40 pounds come fight time. So there's a lot on the line. The Blagoy-Ivanov fight against Volkov is a very good fight. The Blagoy story, in terms of what he's come back from, maybe the most compelling story I've ever heard in sports in terms of a real comeback to an elite world-class level. And Volkov wants another shot at Minakov, try to get his belt back, but you balance it. You say, well, we want to drive ratings because we want a lot of people watching right before we transition, because pay-per-view is such an impulse buy. You want people watching on Spike domestically in the US and up here, and you want them ultimately saying, God, this was good. Imagine what Tito versus Shlemenko and Rampage versus Mo is going to be like. So you've got to balance it. You can't put every single piece of meat you've got into the pay-per-view. And the pay-per-view is strong. The Rainey Page fight is strong, and nobody even talks about that. 2 guys built in the vein of like Koreshkov and Lima, strikers at 70. So it just, there's a lot of depth to the show.
Tito Ortiz will seek out a victory Saturday night as he meets Bellator middleweight champion Alexander Shlemenko in a 205-pound bout. With a laundry list of injuries, Ortiz has struggled for the majority of the past 7 years with only 1 win since October of 2006. We now hear from Ortiz as he prepares for this pay-per-view bout with Shlemenko, who has won 13 straight since October of 2010.
How would I prepare for Shlemenko? You know, it really comes down to just getting the right sparring partners. Guys who are southpaws, guys who really just fight just like him. We try to mimic the way he fights. And during sparring, during our practices, we do exactly what he does. Kicks, punch, spinning punches. Come straight forward. That's what we get ready for. And I know he has great cardio. His endurance is like no other. I mean, he's a younger guy, of course, but let's see if he can handle a bigger man. You know, he's on 50-7. He stops everybody. I beat him, and I'm right back, you know, where I needed to be. Whenever I ever fought, I always fought guys who were in the top tier of their weight class or, you know, in the world. And he's the top tier in the weight class. He's the champion. I'm fighting the champion. And at the end of the fight, my hand's gonna be raised. This is the first of 4. I'll be the world champion after these 4 fights are over, and I'll retire. 4 fights, I'll be a world champion. And that's in my mind, that's my goal, that's all I wanna do. I'm making a run for this world title. And it's gonna come down to me and Rampage, I believe. But I haven't counted my chickens before they hatched, and number 1 is May 17th. I gotta get past the world champion, Alexander Shlemenko. He said he wanna fight me, he said he's gonna beat me, now he got to prove it on May 17th.
It was this past Friday night that Bellator came through Canada with Bellator 119 in Rama, Ontario, with a card that featured a controversial bout involving Rafael Butler and Nick Rossborough that ended in a majority draw. The opening round saw Rossborough get the back of Butler, who proceeded to headbutt Rossborough and then get restarted in the stand-up position. We spoke with Rossborough's cornerman, DeMarcus Johnson, about his reaction to the fight.
I thought it sucked, personally. I mean, there was a lot of mistakes made in that fight and the way it was reffed. And I mean, yeah, Nick didn't lose, but it's not something that Rafael should feel good about. I mean, he headbutted the dude in the mouth, which is illegal. And then they started it over standing up. There was a lot of mistakes made, and I think the ref should get looked at.
It's been 2 months since Johnny Hendricks laid claim to becoming the UFC welterweight champion at UFC 171 in Dallas as he defeated Robbie Lawler. It was later revealed that Hendricks went into that fight with a torn bicep and also injured his shin during the fight. We caught up with the 170-pound champion who provides a health update.
My arm's doing good. Tuesday I just got the brace off, which is great. And I got 6 more weeks of therapy. And so right now I'm not thinking of any fighting. because I know if I think of a date, I might push it and I re-injure myself. So I'm trying to let my doctors and therapists, let them dictate everything, so that way, you know, I can focus all my energy on that and this. You know, travel, get my fan base up. I like the pressure. I like that everybody wants to fight me. You know, some people deserving, some people aren't. You know what I mean? And the people that are, you know, whenever I get healthy, they'll get a shot. You know, but that's what I like to do. You know, I like to compete. I like to compete against the best. And I definitely have gotten that the last couple of years.
While Hendricks works back to full health, his counterpart at UFC 171 will return to action next weekend at UFC 173 in Las Vegas, where he scores off with Jake Ellenberger. Lawler's coming off that 5-round war and was quick to step in when Tarek Saffiedine fell out of this fight with Ellenberger, and we take a closer look at this bout at 170 pounds.
And new undisputed UFC welterweight champion of the world, Johnny Big Rig Hendricks! Johnny Hendricks is the champion!
The thing is when you leave it up to the judges, those things happen. I just didn't do enough tonight, they thought, and I thought I fought a pretty good fight, defended some takedowns, and it was a hell of a fight, and he brought it, and he was in shape, and he got the victory.
You know, Robbie is a tough fighter. You know what I mean? He's been through so much. He's amazing. He put on a great show today.
Well, this is one of those fights I always say there is no loser in this fight. You know, when you put on a performance like they both put on tonight, I mean, awesome fight.
Despite the decision loss, Robbie Lawler's stock is at an all-time high. With Johnny Hendricks out until later in the year and no clear-cut #1 contender, Ruthless could put himself right back in the mix with a win over UFC 173 opponent Jake Ellenberger.
Man, I've been training hard, and he has his hands full May 24th.
The Juggernaut hasn't fought since the decision loss to Roy McDonald at UFC on Fox 8, a performance that drew criticism from UFC president Dana White.
Ellenberger literally did nothing. His punch stat was close to 0, and you know, he shot in like the 2nd round maybe one time, and he just literally did nothing.
In a sport where you're only as good as your last performance, Ellenberger certainly has a lot to do to prove he deserves to be ranked in the top 5 at welterweight.
I'm focused on myself, and when I'm 100%, I know I can beat anyone in the world.
A win over Lawler would certainly go a long way to erase the memory of that terrible night in Seattle. If the Ellenberger that knocked out veterans Jake Shields and Nate Marquardt shows up in Las Vegas, we could be in for another Fight of the Year candidate. However, if the Ellenberger from UFC on Fox 8 shows up, don't expect to see the Juggernaut standing upright long enough for the crowd to boo.
UFC's welterweight division has become one of the most intriguing in the sport, with so many interesting combinations among the top 10 in that division. One man that doesn't have any level of enthusiasm to participate, though, is Nick Diaz, who, along with brother Nate, remain on the sidelines, and UFC president Dana White thinks the brothers are making a big mistake during the prime of their careers.
If the Diaz brothers don't ever want to fight again, that's up to them. They're fun to watch. I know people like to watch them, but you can't make grown men fight. Sure. They either want to fight or they don't. They're under contract. I like them, you know? And I used to have a really good relationship with Nate. Fighting or any other sport, it isn't a profession. It's not a job. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make money. It's an opportunity to achieve great things during a short window of time. And if they want to sit out their window of time for the rest of their career, that's up to them. Nate Diaz just signed a new contract. I don't think people realize that. He just signed a new deal. He won 1 fight out of his last 3 fights and wants more money and wants a title shot and wants this and wants that. That's really not the way it works. You know, we're just sitting here tonight talking about how Matt Brown has won 7 in a row. Matt Brown doesn't have a title shot yet. Nate Diaz is far from 7 in a row.
And the last man we hear from is legendary broadcaster Jim Ross, who just announced he will be calling the action for Golden Boy Boxing on May 26th. Ross was recently in Toronto and stopped by our studio, where we chatted about Chael Sonnen and how he enlisted the advice of Paul Heyman when it came to the dynamic that developed between Sonnen and Vanderlei Silva on the current season of Tough Brazil.
Chael felt that the tide was turning because of how Silva was conducting himself, and it was starting to disgust his own people. And so, gosh, what are we going to do? We have to have a protagonist, antagonist, I would have told him the same advice that Paul Heyman did. You got to be the guy now. If the fans are not willing to support the axe murderer because of his attitude, and they're jumping off his wagon, you got to jump on the wagon and become that baby face, become that hero. He was wise to do that. The nice thing for Chael is that Chael felt it. He recognized it. He's such a good promoter anyway. He's a great spokesman for UFC. Plus, this is a big money fight for him. He's going to get a good payday out of this thing. And then there may not be that many more paydays for Chael at that level, at this stage of his career. He'll always be on TV talking about fighting because he's great at it. So he sensed it, he felt it. It was a natural instinct, but he still didn't know exactly how do I fix it. If you're a good promoter, you go with what the audience is telling you they want. It's the same thing with how Daniel Bryan in WWE was so popular before he finally got they flipped the switch to moving to the next level. It took them a long time to realize this organic chant was real. People liked him, whether you liked him or not, the paying customer liked him. And at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, the guy that buys the ticket and comes in and sits down is your #1 priority.
Here he is, John Ramdeen, the beat of the pulse of mixed martial arts. What's going on 3 rounds today?
We are looking ahead to the UFC, of course, and one of the pound-for-pound best will be in action in the coming weeks. Who will it be? You got to tune in to find out.
All these questions, do you want answers? Then don't go anywhere. Fight News Now continues. John Ramdeen, Robin Black, 3 rounds, and who is this guy talking about? Welcome back to Fight News Now. It's John Pollock with you, and it's the part of the show where we switch it over to John Ramdeen and Robin Black for this week's edition of 3 rounds. And guys, we are coming off an easy Fight of the Year contender this past Saturday.
Thanks so much, John. It is going to be hard to top the action that went down in the main event of Fight Night, Brown versus Silva. Matt Brown comes back from the dead after taking those heavy kicks to the body. He perseveres and thrills the audience. And I think if you look ahead to the next big show that's happening, UFC 173, that goes down at the MGM Grand Garden in Las Vegas, Nevada, one of the pound-for-pound best on the planet, Renan Barao. But the casual fans don't know who this guy is. They would rather see Matt Brown because he comes to fight, he gets hurt, and he comes back. But you listen to BJ Penn, you listen to Jose Aldo, and some of the big wigs in mixed martial arts, they say Barao is the man. Is TJ Dillashaw working with Uriah Faber and the guys at Alpha Male? Is he the guy to dethrone the champion?
Hey, look, man, the experts know what's up. Barao has 647 wins over the last 45 years. He's the greatest athlete in the history of all sports. And TJ Dillashaw, he's some brand new kid who's got no skills. He has no chance. Why are we even having this fight? That's crazy. One thing we know about every unbeatable guy is there's a time that comes when he can be beaten, and TJ Dillashaw just might be the guy to do it. Great wrestling. Better and better striking, and he believes, even in that last loss, he believes he won it, he believes he can win this fight, and that's a good place to start.
Barao in the prime of his career, 27 years of age, on a ridiculous roll right now. But you look at the guys that he has faced and defeated: Eddie Wineland, Michael McDonald, Uriah Faber, really the top fighters in the 135-pound division. And you look at TJ Dillashaw, one of his losses of recent was against John Dodson, who is now 125 pounds. You would imagine that Barao, the Brazilian destroyer, will be able to pick up any weaknesses in Dillashaw's game and take advantage of it, because that's what he does, and that's what he does extremely well.
Absolutely, but let's look at the things that make this a possible win for Dillashaw, starting with Uriah Faber. Uriah Faber, his leader, has been examining this opponent for years, prepared for him himself a couple of times, so he's prepared him. Dillashaw's young, and he's hungry, and man, Mike Tyson was unbeatable. Every great fighter's unbeatable. John Jones today, unbeatable, but they all fall one day, and what if that one day is Saturday night?
Let's just say that for Barao, he goes out there, ends up finishing TJ Dillashaw in the 2nd or 3rd round. Right now, you have a problem at 135 pounds because you have a guy that is head and shoulders above all the competition in his weight class, but not a lot of the casual fans understand the type of skills that he possesses and how to market the Brazilian. Is that because, number one, he doesn't speak English, and for the casual fans, it's hard to get over, or the North American audience, because, you know, in Brazil, this guy's well known. But what do you do with this problem with Barao? if he gets this big victory against Dillashaw?
Well, the easy thing is guys like Matt Brown are easy to sell. They're exciting. They go out as blood and guts, and every single fight you will see the human drama of a guy trying to overcome pain and every challenge. With a guy like Barao, we need to educate the fans. We need them to see how beautiful his jiu-jitsu is, how beautifully he moves on the ground, how he's able to analyze opponents, break them down mid-fight. How do we do that? We got to get guys in front of him. And if the next few guys are Brazilians, we got to do it in Brazil. We got to keep building him in Brazil, or maybe do it in the Cain Velasquez fight down in Mexico. But this, if he really is as good as we all believe he is, we got to solve this problem, because the greatest fighters need to have the greatest audiences.
And you talk about Brazilian challengers. You have Johnny Eduardo, who just knocked out Eddie Wineland.
Yep.
You have, let's see, there's so many guys right now.
Sun
Tzu there, Wilson Hayes there. Right now, the best challengers are Brazilian guys, so I think I agree with you. You have to have this main event in Brazil. That is, if Renan Barao beats TJ Dillashaw. Right now, he's looking very good, working with so many talented fighters, whether it's the team leader in Uriah Faber or Joseph Benavidez. Right now, he's working with some serious guys, as well as Chad Mendes, who's going to be getting ready to face off against Barao's teammate Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and while I'm making for possible theories of to why we shouldn't be writing off TJ Dillashaw, the moment that we're all writing a guy off, the moment we're all saying a win is automatic, is that same feeling happening in a team? Is that same feeling happening with your coach? Is that same feeling happening with your fighter? Because if it is, guys, these young, hungry, driven killers are all waiting out there. They're the wolves climbing the hill, and you're the wolf at the top. And one thing about that wolf at the top, he's always eating. He's getting fat. He's getting slow. These hungry, desperate wolves climbing up there ready to grab him by the throat.
However, I don't think that is the case with Nova União, because they've already experienced it with Jose Aldo for years. This hardcore audience was saying, no, it's not George St. Pierre and John Jones that's the pound-for-pound best. It is Jose Aldo, the former WEC, now UFC featherweight champion. And I think that Jose Aldo would probably be talking to Pagano and say, look, don't let your head get big. Let's just do this together. Let's prove that Nova União is the best team on the planet. And it's hard to argue right now. 2 UFC champions, BJ Penn waving the flag saying these guys are the best in the business.
Well, that, and we just outlined it, man. Everybody at the top of 135 pounds right now is from Brazil. Hey, Wineland, that's a great fighter. Oh, he just lost, and he's already been beat by Barao. Uriah Faber, this is one of the great American fighters ever. No, he's out of the picture. The best fighters in the world right now at 135 pounds are the Brazilians.
The co-main event, an outstanding one. Dan Henderson taking on maybe the future of 205 pounds, and Daniel Cormier. Will this be the fight that sends Dan Henderson into retirement? I have a feeling no.
Yeah.
That will not be the case, but if anybody's going to do it, it is the surging Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, let's look how he beat Shogun, okay? So he wasn't doing super well, but he dug down, so maybe you're not as fast anymore. Maybe you're not as tough anymore. Maybe even you're not as sharp as a Cormier, but he beat Shogun by being a grimy old man. Just shot in for that double and came up with the grimy hook. If you can fight this guy like a grimy old man, take the young guy and wear him down, mentally hurt him, that's the way you got to do it. But Cormier is a badass.
The problem is Dan Henderson's taken a lot of punishment. Cormier doesn't have the miles. But also on that card, ruthless Robbie Lawler takes on Jake Ellenberger. It is going to be a sensational night of fights. Back to you, Mr. Pollock.
Yeah, it should be a very, very exciting welterweight fight at UFC 173. Thank you very much, guys. For more with John and Robin, you can catch them Monday nights at 7 on 5 rounds, as there will be lots to discuss coming out of this weekend. On the other side, we'll take a look at X-Men Days of Future Past, and it wouldn't be a full episode without this week's viral video, and that's all coming your way. Welcome back to the show, and as we look ahead to the weekend, we've got Bellator on pay-per-view, but we also have live mixed martial arts on Fight Network with KSW 27 Cage Time airing live from Poland this Saturday, featuring Mamed Khalidov and Mikhail Falcao in the main event. But it's now time to welcome in Priscilla Caripan for this week's installment of The Shift.
X-Men Days of Future Past hits theaters on May 23rd, and the film marks the 7th installment of the X-Men franchise. This film is loaded with characters and features a star-studded cast. Here's a closer look at the X-Men Days of Future Past.
Professor, you're gonna find this hard to believe. I was sent here for you. From the future? 50 years from now.
Could you give me that one more time, please?
Stay with me.
For me, I grew up reading X-Men, so I feel like some ownership over it.
This is quintessentially X-Men. It is all about character, and there's a lot of surprises. There's so many little cool surprises for the fans in here. It's by far the biggest of the movies.
I just think the movie was very ambitious, and absolutely they pulled it off.
Use your power. Bring the X-Men together.
It feels like a family reunion when we all get together and get to play these characters again.
It's going to be exciting to see both casts, you know, from the original and from the new coming together. I mean, that's what I was excited about. I was excited about being reunited with everybody and seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I was like, whoa.
You're just on the edge of your seat the entire time.
I think it's extraordinary. Extraordinary.
I think it's the best one of all.
I'm so excited for the fans to see it. I think they're going to be really happy.
You're afraid. I remember.
That's it for The Shift this week. We'll see you next time. Back over to you, John.
Thanks, Priscilla, and we have checked off everything for this week's show with the exception of one, and that is this week's viral video, as hours are spent combing the internet for the surreal, the surprising, and above all else, the stupid. And here is this week's discovery.
Yo, you good?
Yeah, man, you all right? Yeah, dude, you all right?
It's okay, he had boxes to protect the injury. And that is how we will end off this week's loaded edition of Fight News Now. A big thanks to all of our guests, Johnny Hendricks, Bjorn Rebney, Jim Ross, DeMarcus Johnson. I'll be back on Thursday with a new edition of the MMA Report up at FightNetwork.com in the podcast section. For John Ramsey, Robin Black, Priscilla Caripan, and the Fight Network crew, I'm John Pollock. We'll speak to you next week on Fight News Now.
Match the Immortal Brown!
Dana, I'll fight Johnny next or what?
I don't know, dude. It just got over. You sound like the media. You got a bunch of money in the Harley. Calm down.
I want more money and more Harleys, though.